Now, ladies and gentlemen, you are now an editor who understands the UI of Premiere Pro. You understand how sequences, timelines work. You understand how to use the effect controls panel to move your clip around the scene. And you understand how to use your editing tools to edit a certain clip and create different effects with it. So with this being said, you're now at a point where you are very familiar with everything that is happening in Premiere Pro, or at least somewhat familiar with everything that is happening in Premiere Pro. Now it's time to kind of dive into the backend and understand the settings. And another thing I want you to do is there is a certain habit that I've noticed all the advanced editors do, and I've done this. It's saved me so much time. It is the habit of shortcuts, and I really regret picking up shortcuts later on. So one thing I want to make sure I teach all of you guys is how to use shortcuts and how to save your time using shortcuts, which we're going to be assigning today. And we're not going to be clicking on our editing tools anymore. We're simply going to be using the assigned shortcut for it, just to build in you guys the habits of shortcuts with editing. Trust me, you're going to thank me in 3 months, okay? So with this being said, let's dive into the settings. To access these settings in Premiere Pro, you can go over to Edit and go down to Preferences. And you just click on whichever one of these. It's going to open up a window where you can access all of them. There is a lot of settings, okay? I don't want to go through most of these because most of them you're never going to use. There's a few settings which we're going to go into, but first let me quickly break down these different sections. General is all the general settings. Appearance is all the settings that have to do with how your Premiere Pro looks. Audio is all the settings that have to do with your audio, your rendering, your playback. Audio hardware is the hardware you're using to listen to the audio and record audio. Yes, you can record voiceovers inside of Premiere Pro if you would like. Okay, autosave is when your Premiere Pro likes to autosave and where it's going to save them. Collaboration, don't worry about that. Color, don't worry about that. Control surface, don't worry about that. Graphics is also how your Premiere Pro outputs different text. Should it go from right to left, left to right, whatever. Labels is how you can change the colors of certain things inside of Premiere Pro. Media is where all the things are saved. Media cache is where your cache files are located and how much you allow them. Memory is how much RAM is allocated to Premiere Pro. Playback is the settings of your playback. Timeline are your timeline settings and when you import things into your timeline. Trim and transcription are your trim and transcription settings. What settings are you going to be needing to change in Premiere Pro? Not much. There are a few recommendations I always recommend. It is you go into audio and make sure you check play audio while scrubbing. What this allows you to do is so that while you're scrubbing, you can hear what's happening, and it's super useful for when you want to do cuts, when you want to do subtitles and stuff like this. Is such a useful thing. So that's the first thing I recommend you turn on. The second thing I recommend you do is go down to memory and allocate 75% of your RAM to Premiere Pro. So I've got 32 gigs. I've left 6 gigs for other applications and 26 for Premiere Pro. So make sure you have 25% for other applications and 75% for Premiere Pro. And one more thing I highly recommend you do is do your autosaves. You set it to 5 minutes. So make sure you save every 5 minutes, and the maximum project version is going to be 20 or 10 depending on how much space you have. What this is going to do is it's going to make sure that whenever Premiere Pro does crash, because it will at least have an autosave that you can go back to and not lose all of your progress. And I really don't want to take any time diving into any of these settings because they are very overcomplicated and very useless, and you're not going to be using any of these. So don't even worry about it, okay? With that being said, that is it for your settings, and that's basically all you need to worry about. When it comes to keyboard shortcuts, it is very crucial to start applying keyboard shortcuts. The main reason is the time it takes you to go and select a certain tool can be saved a lot by just clicking a certain button. You can become so much faster. So instead of to become the quickest possible editor ever, you don't want to be moving your cursor left and right and selecting different things and so on and so forth. Instead, you want to just be clicking on buttons on your keyboard. That way you can select these tools automatically from your fingertips, and just right on your fingertips you can do all your editing without moving a single muscle. And so that's exactly how you become the fastest editor. All right, so that's exactly why we're going to be looking at keyboard shortcuts. To go into it, you just click on edit and click on keyboard shortcuts, and you're going to open this big complex window which no one really understands what it means or what it does, but we don't need to. It's very simple once we break it down. Basically all it is it's just a keyboard, and it has all the buttons that you have assigned to it based on which keys you have set. So you can take a minute to look into this and just see all the different keyboard shortcuts that you've got and everything that you could do with all these different keyboard shortcuts and so on and so forth, but it's really not that complex. We're going to leave everything as it is. I'm going to tell you my personal keyboard shortcuts and why I use them, and if you'd like, you can also apply them. I personally have assigned the button A on my keyboard to the selections or the cursor. So that way, if I ever want to select anything, I quickly just click A and I can move things around, and it makes me super, super quick with it. I have assigned the razor or cut tool to the button C on my keyboard. That way, if I ever want to create any cuts, I could just click on C and then make a cut and click on A and select and start moving it around. And I have assigned my track select forward to V because it was assigned to something else. So naturally, I think the selection tool is assigned to your V, and I think the track select forward is assigned to A, and razor tool is at D or C. I'm not too sure, but I would highly recommend you do these. And the way that you're going to, if you want to change it, the way that you could do this is you go down to over here, for example, to your command, and you go down to like your selection tool. And let's say my selection tool was assigned to, for example, V, right? As it comes by default, all I have to do is just select here. So like, let's say I'm clicking on this, I just click on my V and I click on the X. So I delete it. And then I click on the same space. It's going to open an empty space, and I click on A. It's going to set that to A. Let's see, my track select forward is not assigned to anything, so I just click here and I set that to V. And just make sure you set your, where is it, scroll down, razor tool to C. And this is my personal recommendation. I have found this to be the most useful. Like these shortcuts are so time efficient. I promise you, I used to edit videos. I used to spend over 200 hours editing. And the biggest thing that dropped it from 200 hours to 100, half the time of editing, is through just shortcuts. So you could save half your time. You can edit twice as fast by just using shortcuts. I promise you, it is so useful. Do not make the mistake that I did and overlook them. Make sure you start using shortcuts. And once you've applied all of these, you can click on OK. So with that being said, what are some of the common shortcuts we're going to be using as video editors? I just want to quickly browse through them. You're going to be using A for your selector tool. You're going to be using C for your razor tool. You're going to be using V for your track select forward. You're also going to be using your scroll wheel and your Alt keys very, very like alternatively or together. So you're going to be using like your scroll wheel to move around your timeline, Alt and scroll to zoom in and out. I commonly use my middle mouse to move my scene around to see different sections and then fit it back. And you're also going to be using Control S a lot, which saves your project, and Control Z to undo. Okay, so I quickly want to just go through them one more time. These are the most useful shortcuts. Control and Z to undo things, or Control Shift Z to redo things. Control S to save if you ever do something complex and your Premiere Pro starts lagging. Control S, save it so that if it crashes, you at least have a save. And then A for your move tool, for your selection tool, C for your cut, and V for your track select forward. And obviously backspace for your delete. That one is the easiest, or the delete key, depending on what kind of keyboard you have. Okay, so quick demonstration. If I click on A, I get my selector tool. I can move this around. The way I used to use these shortcuts, check this out. Hold down Alt to zoom in if I want to zoom into a section. So I'll show you two things. If I wanted to make a cut naturally, I would have to zoom in with this slider. I'd have to go over to my razor tool, select it, click this, click here, go over to my selection, click on the middle, right click, cut, move this thing back. Or if I want to do it with shortcuts, check out how quickly it is. So we're going to quickly zoom back out. So Alt, zoom in, like so. C for your razor tool, bam, bam. A for your selection tool, select the middle, delete, select the middle, delete, and you're good to go. Okay, so side-by-side comparison one more time just to show you guys how quick this is. So without anything, here it is. Bam, look at how many actions I am having to do. Look at all this cool movement. And then with shortcuts, C, cut, cut, A, select, delete, delete. And you're good to go. So you can be really, really quick with shortcuts, and that is the goal as video editors, which brings me to our next course. Because now that you understand the UI, and you understand your effect controls, and you understand your keyboard shortcuts and how you can use your editing tools and how you can use your timeline, you're pretty familiar with editing, but you don't want to let all this information go. So we're going to be doing in the next course is we're going to be downloading some raw footage for you guys, and we're also going to be importing it into Premiere Pro, launching our first ever project, doing a few cuts, learning how we can do some cuts, zooming into a few sections, and using all this information we learned so that we can start developing the fundamentals of editing. As I mentioned in the beginning of these courses, guys, this is before the fundamentals. This is just understanding how the program works. The fundamentals begins in the next course and the one after it. So let's go ahead and dive straight in, and let's make a very cool edit in the next course. Let's go ahead and apply our knowledge. I'll see you guys there.